I shall go where the great trees stand, deep into the half-light of the woods whelming upon the giant bodies of the beach. I know the place where the afterglow shines like a pale halo upon the hill, and there the ash and the elm take hold upon the earth, flinging their strength into the sky. And over the summit of the hill on slanting ground, a crabtree and a crooked thorn crouch and clutch each other. I shall come around them uneasily and pass under the ash and the elm with an intaking of breath, and so down the valley to the track that runs into the pine wood where the darkness closes in, and the feet tread noiselessly, and the lungs are filled with the scent of the hanging curtains, the needle carpet and the cones. Tread softly over the grass that springs out of the blood and bodies of old heroes of the Icknield Way, long since gone to dust. Back to the place of dwelling, to the encampment. My perfect campsite has a river running through it. There are woods, just like at Comrie Croft. There is a dawn chorus. Birdsong makes us feel good because it's the sound of safety. Birds stop singing when there is danger. My peak camping moments come back to me, hot spots of memory, moments seared into the fabric. Lying awake at dawn in Edale, listening to the stream percolate through the pebbles. Sitting upon a large flat stone at the edge of Doulas Bay in the Ring of Kerry. I want animals on my perfect campsite, like the chickens which have just laid our breakfast, or the brown and white cattle on Plorhatch Farm with their bovine soap opera. From behind a fence, the bull moaned soul music, and the lady cows scampered and tittered at the prospect. For hygiene on our perfect campsite, let us take the wood-panelled solar-heated showers from South Penquite Farm on Bodmin Moor and the rough earth closets from the woods of Abbey Home Farm in Gloucestershire. In our quest for perfection, let us not forget the weather. On my perfect site, the weather is varied so that I can study each of its manifestations, watch the rain shower approach along the valley, and thrill in the rainbow afterwards. I'll even take a strong wind at night to give me the satisfaction of fixing my guy ropes.
We slept outside in the cold, between the willow and the weeds, with a wild breeze through thistle leaves spreads a cringeworthy sea, and through the state
The glories of a mountain campfire are far greater than may be guessed. One can make a day of any size and regulate the rising and setting of his own sun and the brightness of its shining. You gaze around at the illumined trees as if you never saw trees before. How marvellously the plumy fronds of the fir show out their beauty, as if the tree had ferns for branches. And each grass and daisy, now the attention is directed, may be seen for what it is, the shining corolla and panicles waving and nodding in sympathy with flashing frames. The bossy boles and branches ascend in fire to heaven. The light, slowly gathered from the suns of centuries, going again to the sun, in clear eddying sparks and flames of ever-changing motion, the very type of unweariable elemental power. Sparks stream off like comets or in round star-like worlds from a sun. They fly into space in milky ways of lavishness, then fall in white flakes feathery and pure as snow. The first night was clear, and we lay down in the darkening aisles of the great sequoia grove. The majestic trunks, beautiful in colour and in symmetry, rose round us like the pillars of a mightier cathedral than ever was conceived even by the fervour of the Middle Ages. Hermit thrushes sang beautifully in the evening, and again, with a burst of wonderful music, at dawn. To myself, I sometimes appear as a wild Indian or an old berserker masquerading under the guise of a 19th century American. When the straitjacket of civilization becomes too oppressive, I throw it off, betake myself to savagery, and there loaf and refresh my soul. I love a horse, a gun, a dog, a trout, and a pretty girl. I hate a pot hunter, a trout liar, and a whiskey guzzling sportsman. I smoke and take an occasional glass of wine, and never lie about my hunting and fishing exploits more than the occasion seems to demand. How to light a campfire in the Indian way without a match using a bow drill. Whittle a 15-inch pin of dry fir until it is 3/4 of an inch thick, pointed at both ends and roughly 8-sided. To either end of this pin, tie a lace like a loose bowstring, then trim a flat piece of balsam wood to about 1/2 inch thick and cut a notch in the edge, and just above this notch dig a little bowl. Into a 1/2 inch deep hole in the ground, lay a flat piece of pine punk that's completely dry and rotten wood, and across this set the piece of balsam wood that is to act as the fireboard. The bottom point of the fir pin is placed into the pit of the fireboard. The top of the fir pin fits into a pebble with a socket hole in it. 100 years later, foraging around campsites in Sussex, we found one of these pebbles. It fitted snugly in the palm and had just the right size socket hole within it. Then, using a stick of about 3 feet in length, draw it back and forth across the bow, making the pin whirl in the fireboard. A brown powder will run out of the notch and onto the punk below. As the pit in the fireboard deepens, the powder darkens and forms a smoking heap atop the punk. The moment the powder smokes, fan it to stoke the heat. Remove the fireboard and lift the punk from the pit, waving it in the air until the powder smoulders and bursts into flame. Add a tinder of cedar shavings and you have the beginnings of a campfire set in the ancient way. At the Ohlone of the Kindred of the Kibbo Kift, over 100 tents were pitched in a semicircle on a large flat common bordered by woods. A man dressed in a leopard skin beats a drum. He enacts a tribal hunting dance with a woman dressed in what appears to be an enormous shredded wheat. A solemn procession of barefoot men in shorts and hooded jerkins follows a caped man carrying a tall staff. 4 hooded adolescent boys carry between them an ark of some sorts, its poles resting on their shoulders, and atop the ark a totem. A kneeling wooden figure holding aloft the great mark of the Kibbo Kift. The great mark is a single K with an extended vertical, making the letter appear like a leafless winter tree. A curl of wood smoke from a campfire bisects the mark, the sinuous symmetry of the yin-yang. Kibbo Kifters frequently pose for photographs by making the symbol of the K, their upright posture forming the vertical line of the K, their arms completing the letter. It was an ancient gesture of supplication to the sun, adapted by the kindred to demonstrate their reverence towards a different light, that of knowledge. To make the sign of the K was to bow down to art, science and philosophy. All of their symbols and rituals were layered with meaning. The badge of the kindred was circular to symbolize eternity. The campfire also represented the flame of life. When a man stood naked on the hillside and made the mark of the K with his arms, he was not merely worshipping nature or the sun, he was acknowledging the intellectual and spiritual inheritance of humanity. The figures marched up the Longman of Wilmington, a chalk giant inscribed into the steep Windover Hill. The men wore knee-length shorts, brown leather belts, jerkins and pointed green cowls in imitation of the forest outlaws Robin and his merry men. The women wore Arabian keffiyeh-style headdresses to protect against the sun, and one-piece knee-length dresses tied with leather belts. On the flap of their grey Bergen rucksacks, a mark was painted, a large letter K beside the curling smoke of a campfire and a single green fir tree. The men and women greeted one another with the salute of the open palm, right hand raised high, and a cry of "Hurrah!" All the hikers carried rough ash staves, which pushed against the earth as they ascended the Longman, singing a song of their own devising, "The Kindred is coming." Windover Hill and the surrounding area are rich with remnants from England's ancient past. Neolithic flint mines, Bronze Age burial barrows and a Roman terrace way. The hikers marched up the steep hill and, at the heart of the Longman, performed a brief ritual of dedication. Their voices echoed in the distinctive acoustics of the concave slope. Thus they reached back, far, far back, into the void-faced hood of prehistory. Mankind's evolution has been a progressive degeneration, with alienation at every stage. First man was alienated from oneness with his God, then cast out from the harmony of nature. The process of separation is remorseless, each severance placing another partition between man and the world. He lost his link to his ancestors. He grew apart from others, from his community and fellow man, until even his wife and his own children were alien to him. Each cut was made by the instruments of capital and industry, 2 scissor blades cutting in unison. The final divorce the ultimate decree nisi was issued by Freud, man was alienated from his own self. The hikers reached through the void and into the hood, searching for the rough hand of Neolithic man, their ancient guide to living in harmony with the subtle, undulating forms of the downs. Ritual completed, the hikers continued up over the featureless head of the Longman to the top of the hill. There they looked down over the South Downs, a cumuliform landscape of whale-backed hills and verdant valleys founded on a bank of chalk. Cloud shadows passed over ploughed wheat fields. In the distance, coastal bays and the glittering English Channel and the 7 peaks of the chalk cliffs known as the Seven Sisters. The South Downs, its name derived from the Saxon word dun, meaning hill, was one of a number of English landscapes stalked by these strange hikers. Their rituals combine the teachings of the world's religions with the ancient British pagan tradition, the Albion of Menhir, Tor and Cromlech, Silbury Hill and the White Horse of Uffington. These ancient sites throbbed with dormant meaning. For a joke, in the Freudian sense that there is no such thing as a joke, one of their men stripped naked and squatted at the root of the enormous phallus of the Cern giant as if drawing the sexual potency into himself. Such ancestor worship sounds preposterous now. In the 21st century, Stonehenge is a tourist attraction at which the passing traffic on the A303 slows to Gorb. But in 1929, the sites of English prehistory retained sufficient mystical charge to inspire this select group of hikers and campers as they sought to change direction of Western civilization. They were the most intriguing of English reform movements, an elite cell a few hundred strong, already 9 years into their existence come the occasion of the dedication to the Longman of Wilmington. They were the Kindred of the Kibbo Kift. The camping years have become one long camp. Only the campsites have changed. And what flawless campsites we chose. Their very names are immemorial England. At Princess Risborough, under the enormous cross carved on the chalk hillside of Whiteleaf. By Magpie Bottom in the Downs above Shoreham Valley. By the Hammer Ponds near Horsham. Close Staining, or underneath Shanktonbury Ring. Within sight of Stonehenge, staring at the Longman of Wilmington, on the banks of Coniston Water, a walk from the Swannery at Abbotsbury, under dreaming Christchurch Minster, at Timberscombe by Hazelmere, at Hangman's Cove, in the meadows of the giant curve of the Wye, under the brow of Simmons Yacht, or in that tiny hamlet with the Norse name of Garth, high up in the Welsh hills, not far from Llangollen. Looking across the rich Cheshire plain on which in the early mornings all the clouds of England lie pillowed.